Okay, I'm going to start the meeting for the CPA committee for April 15th. Anybody here from the public who would like to speak to us other than items on the agenda? No. Okay. City official communication. I saw that blurb from Stuart about how much money was there. He put $2 billion down, or half of 200. It's supposed to be 250 million.
Yeah.
So,
I think that it did include not just the state match, but also what the local municipalities also raised.
So it bodes well for the state match. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to share the screen and look at the account balances. There's John.
I don't have a virtual background. How do I just
mute yourself first of all?
I'm muted.
No, you're not.
Joe McCoy didn't come yet. Where is he?
I got a message from Joe saying that he was not going to be able to make it tonight.
Oh, really?
He had a scheduled thing that he didn't know about the CPA meeting, or that he was going to.
Well, he just joined. So if everybody should know that Joe McCoy is taking Ed's place from the Housing Authority. Joe is a former counselor, a good friend of mine, and was president of the city council and is excited to be on the CPA committee. But unfortunately, he got knowledge of this, I think it was Monday, so he had to reschedule. Comp balances. I just want to know, Jamie, what these lines mean, because I note that there's $72,000 left, say, in the non-national pond sediment, and it's crossed off. Does that mean that's coming back to us? What is it?
No, I was trying to show the projects that the open project balance. It's actually misstated. It says January 31st, but it's actually as of April 30th. But those projects, my understanding is that they're closed. The work has been completed, but the billing hasn't been completed yet. So I was putting a line through them to show that they were substantially complete. We're still waiting on the billing. I'll continue to run down those numbers until they're actually completed. But if the committee wants me to show it differently, I can show it differently as well.
Well, I think you shouldn't cross. The excitement I got was, hey, we're getting $72,000 back, but we're not, because they haven't fully billed it. Okay. I'd like to ask that you be on them to get their information to us as soon as possible, because obviously this is real money. Open space plan that doesn't mean it means they just haven't been billed for the $35,000 that's remaining, correct?
Correct. So I mean, the plan is complete. It's up online.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Similarly, the housing production plan is complete and is online. I will clarify that for the next meeting.
Yeah, if the work is done, find out when and if the final billing will be done, so we can see if we're getting any cash back.
Okay.
And we have $1,020,000 in the bank. Does anybody have any questions on this as I show it? Anybody? I don't see everybody, Jamie, so people are raising their hands. It's good, and we did get good from Hadel. It appears that we got a good return from last year. We passed the budget, the city council last night, for our committee at 526 or 560 something. And I know that we'll get more than that. So when all of that comes in, Jamie, refresh my memory, the revenue when it's finalized from 2021, that goes immediately into the...
So when we start the when we start the 22 fiscal year, the remaining money will get moved to the undesignated account. But it takes a little bit of time for the accounts to be reconciled and the books to close. So when
the books are closed, it goes immediately into undesignated fund, and we can use it immediately.
Correct, but we're going to be
not until like October or something.
Yeah, and then the state match will come in November for the FY21.
One state match or the 22?
It's the 21 state match. The revenue that was raised in 21, we get the match in 22. So we'll get that in November of the beginning of FY 2022.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions? I'm going to move on. This is the Valley CDC pre-development assessment sites for affordable housing. Who's representing the Valley CDC here today?
I am Laura Baker. Hi.
Laura, why don't you talk us through what you're asking for? We've all seen the application.
Okay. You know, I prepared a PowerPoint for you folks, and I can take you through it rapidly, because I see that's the pace we're going at, which I like. And then you can call me back if there are questions about it.
No, why don't you give her co-host privileges, Jamie, so she can share the screen. Hey, Greg is here. Great.
Laura, Laura, your co-host, you should be able to share your screen.
How are we doing?
There it is.
All right. So again, I'm going to move quickly, but we can always go back if people have questions. This is fairly
I
duplicate.
just want to let Greg know that we're talking about the first item, pre-development assessments for affordable housing, and this is the Valley CDC giving us the project.
So it's pretty duplicative of the packet that you received. My name is Laura Baker. I'm the Real Estate Project Manager for Valley Community Development Corporation. So just wanted to clarify that this is not a planning study per se, and wanted to talk briefly about the difference between planning and pre-development. So planning, you've actually funded a couple of different plans, like the Housing Preservation Plan, which looks at data and need and demand, opportunities and challenges. Pre-development explores the feasibility of particular sites for particular housing uses. And I see pre-development as the bridge between the planning work and the actual construction of affordable housing. So the goals that would be associated with this proposed pre-development activity are to create new affordable apartments at a scale that's financially feasible, both for development and during the operating period. We think that scale is likely to be 30 to 50 apartments in a single phase of development. Doesn't mean one building, it just means constructed at a single time. We would hope to serve a range of income tiers, 30% being very extremely low income, 60% being more moderate income, but not exceeding 100% AMI, which we understand is the cap for the CPA program. We would look to have a mix of different unit sizes to ensure that whatever is developed is deed restricted in perpetuity, also known as 99 years, and that most, if not all, units are eligible for the subsidized housing inventory. If there are units created between 80 and 100%, I don't believe they're eligible for the subsidized housing inventory, although they are eligible under CPA. We'd want to have the units be accessible and provide on-site services and amenities as appropriate. We would establish minimum site selection criteria, and these are defined here: buildable land for at least 30 units, public water and sewer, no hazardous materials, ability to handle stormwater, zoned for the proposed use or able to be zoned for the proposed use. And available. Lots of times people recommend sites to us that aren't actually for sale. So we need to find things that are actually available to be purchased or acquired at a price that is at or below the appraised value. And then we'll kind of layered on those kind of baseline selection criteria, we have things that we would prefer about a site. A walkable location, within half a mile of the city, within half a mile of a bus stop, close to other transit, a patient property seller, because our work takes time, a site that is large enough to include some on-site amenities, and potentially a site that could be expanded in the future. If we're reusing a building, we prefer that we're not working with a historic building, although we certainly have worked and can work with historic buildings. And a site that is favorable to having PV solar, that kind of thing, achieving a high level of energy efficiency. So within that work that we do, that we call pre-development, we identified the primary tasks. The first one, and maybe the most critical one, is identifying the site. So it usually starts with looking at many sites to kind of try to narrow it down to the one that we think will work the best. In this case, we're saying we'll look at 4 or more potential sites. I'm sure it will be more. The city has requested that we include within this work looking at 2 of the school buildings that are soon to be surplused. But we'll also be looking at privately owned sites. Once we see the sites, have identified them, we do site feasibility analysis, which varies from site to site, but it's really testing to see what you can build on the site, essentially. Site control is another critical step. In order for us to raise any resources beyond planning and pre-development, we need to have site control. So it doesn't mean that we own the site necessarily. It could be just having a written option to purchase it, a purchase and sales agreement, a long-term lease, or in fact, ownership. So it's a negotiation that goes on with the current owner to establish site control. Once we've identified this site and we're kind of homing in on it, we would do preliminary site and building designs with more of an emphasis actually in the early days on the site design, because that's typically what becomes the foundation for any kind of zoning permission. Zoning and permitting, everybody's favorite. So once we have those plans that are sufficient for planning or zoning board to review, we would seek a permit. And folks may know that in Massachusetts, there's a special permitting process called Chapter 40B, Comprehensive Permit, that allows someone who's developing affordable units to request waivers from any local zoning bylaw or regulation. So it's a pretty powerful tool. And it allows us to work with sites and sometimes often work at a density that might not be allowed by right under the zoning. Throughout this activity, we would be engaging with the community and with the public. So, municipal boards that are interested in this, staff in the planning department, yourselves, always neighbors and abutters are engaged and active, usually participants, as well as the general community. We spend much time on raising money. Construction's very expensive. Affordable housing development is expensive, and typically we need to bundle anywhere between 8 to 12 different funding sources together to have enough money to build what we want to build. And so there's a lot of applying, including this is an application that we're doing here for CPA money. So it could be local money, could be state or federal money, and could be private money, both in the form of loans or grants. We're proposing an 18-month schedule from the time that we execute a contract with the city. We want to work closely with the city staff to coordinate findings with their work. They're starting to gear up for an RFP in preparation of surplusing the schools. This is the budget that was included with our application. Essentially, we have 2 categories of uses. One is staff time, and the other is third-party costs. So it's a lump sum amount deliberately, because each site that we identify may have different needs. Some sellers may have already done some of this work. So we need a flexible pool of funds that we can use when we're looking at different sites. The majority of this is CPA. Valley's committing some in-kind contribution in terms of staffing, and that's our total. And that's it. So happy to answer questions. I know I went quickly, or talk in more detail about any aspect of the proposed activity.
Well, thank you, Laura. I have a couple.
Sure.
Does this is just preliminary in that you're going to find sites that may be usable, including the schools, which I like. You're going to look at those sites as to whether they meet your criteria and they have a likelihood of being used. And my biggest question is the Valley CDC the end contractor after you get all of this? You're the developer of these projects? In other words, just as an example, you decide you want the old Maple School and you're going to build it out for some apartments.
Yep.
But you're the people that are going to do it. Because after you look at this after you do all of this preliminary work, you decide that that's a good target for you.
Right.
But
So
you're not going out, my biggest question is you're not going out looking for some developer to do the work. You're going to be the developer. You're going to start trying to find the funds. Okay.
So we are developers. We're not planners. So
I just wanted to know.
Yep, all of this is geared toward the actual creation of housing units that Valley would build itself. Now, in the course of our work, which will all be public, of course, through the city, it may be that we spark development opportunities for other folks. What we've talked about with the city is if we are doing a lot of legwork in terms of feasibility analysis for a school building, for example, that we would make all of our materials and findings available when they do their RFP. So we don't have an unfair advantage in terms of bidding, because that will be a bid process. So anything that we discover related to one of those schools would go into that bid process. We would decide whether we're interested in bidding on one of those schools or not, just like other developers might decide that. But we're looking for a single site that we can build housing on.
So in other words, if you pick a school, you're not going to do one at another site. You decided to do a school.
Most likely,
we're
looking for the highest and best opportunity to create affordable rental housing at a certain scale.
Okay, so it might be a school, it might be you building an entire new building on a site?
Correct.
Okay.
So it's really mission driven. It's about the end goal of people having affordable housing.
And you mentioned, I think you said 40B zoning.
Yes.
Obviously, the density of that has always been a neighborhood problem.
Yep.
Can you go into how that would work in your vision? I mean, we've had issues with that, and I didn't think it was that big a deal, and it still doesn't. The treehouse, I think it was, but I think they're 40B. Anyway, go into what that means.
Yep. Well, Valley developed Parsons Village. Gosh, now it's about 6-7 years ago that it opened.
And that was an easy process, as I recall.
Thankfully, it preceded me. I hear it was fun. No, so that was one that was actually zoning. I believe it was able to be zoned under a special permit. That was denied, and then it went under 40B, and was eventually approved and built. And I think it's lovely, and I don't think it's a problem really for the neighbors. I haven't heard that it is.
Don't either.
But yes, it is almost a universal truth that we have concerned neighbors and abutters. And there is a process, sometimes it's a few months, sometimes it can be longer, to try to address those concerns and, get a permitted project that hopefully the neighbors and abutters won't appeal, but they could. And in Easthampton's case, because you're below 10% of of affordable housing on the subsidized housing inventory, someone can appeal, but their likelihood of success is low, but they could sure slow it down. So, we try to be prudent about location, but it's almost a universal truth that we choose a site that we think is awesome for this use, and not everybody who lives there thinks the same.
Oh, that's going to be the case if you're building a Dunkin' Donuts or whatever you're building.
Yeah. So we need to do. We work as best we can to give information, to give opportunity to neighbors and abutters to learn about the project, to have input to the project. It doesn't mean everybody is happy at the end of the day, usually, but most people come along.
And just one more, Greg. So just to be simplistic about this, your end work product will be, we've targeted this site or maybe this school. We think this is the best place we can do 30 to 50 rental apartment units. And here's our plan. This is what our cost is. And we're going to move forward with funding resources. But this initial project is to locate that plan and go into the detail of how you might do it. Am I correct?
So the work products are actually a little bit beyond what you're saying. It's to identify it. It's to vet it. Study it. It's to secure site control, which is a significant milestone beyond just planning. It's to at least start the permitting process and at least start the financing process.
But do you come back to us before you do initiate site? Like, you're going to come back to us and say, we like this site. Or are we giving you carte blanche now to go ahead and buy a site? That's a little iffy on me.
Yeah, I don't think we anticipated coming back and having a committee agree or not agree that it's a good site. We did commit to work with the planning department on that issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I saw Greg's hand first, and then I'll go around to anybody else. Greg?
Yeah. Hi, Laura. Thank you.
Sure.
I know we have, you know, not a lot of affordable housing or whatever, so I'm glad you're coming forward with the project. I don't know a lot about affordable housing, so can I, as a developer, once you develop it, do you maintain ownership? How does that work?
Oh, it's so complicated. Yeah. The short answer
is that the case for Parsons Village? Like, you know, you've developed these and you're effectively kind of still involved in the sort of landlord, or just explain that to me, because I'm very
sure. It's a great question.
In my understanding.
It's a great question. So the short answer is yes, typically. In the case of Parsons Village Valley, co-sponsored that project with Wayfinders. And in that arrangement, we agreed to do all the pre-development work and the construction supervision. They agreed to do the property and asset management. So you have another nonprofit in that case that is providing oversight. For this project, I think we would probably be doing it ourselves and doing both ends of it. We do use a third party. We have a professional property management company that we contract with that does a lot of affordable housing property management. But yeah, the idea is we are the stewards of the property. We don't go away. And certainly we are local. So we want to be around to make sure if there's any issues in the future that we're there to address those.
And so just give us a sense of scale as far as, you know, I know you have lots of other projects in the Valley. So how many units or how many places do you currently manage or own?
Sure. So we currently own 85 rental units. Some are small. I think the smallest one is 8 units. I think the largest one is 24. Although we've been partnering with Wayfinders on some larger developments. So the largest of those is the Lumberyard property in Northampton, which is 55 units. And then HMR, which is our managed property management company, I believe they have about 8,000 units under management. And so they would manage anywhere from a very small development up to a few hundred units that are in one place.
And the income, I'm sorry to interrupt, Greg, but just to be clear, the income restrictions, the income qualifications are in perpetuity. They're always there. A certain percentage of AMI is always there. You can't all of a sudden turn these into market rate.
Right. So a lot of the financing, probably any local money that went into development, certainly any state money, would come with an affordable housing deed restriction.
That's what I mean.
And a lot of the financing is what we call soft debt. It's a loan, but you don't pay it back as long as you're in compliance. So there are millions of dollars, as well as this deed restriction, kind of binding the developer to their commitments for affordable housing. Some of the funding sources ask for 30 years of affordability, 45, 50, 99. We're in the business of developing and owning affordable housing. So we have no end game where it becomes market housing. So we are happy when people we are fine when people want a 99-year commitment. We're fine doing that.
Case. Greg, are you done, buddy, with your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Scott, go ahead.
Hi, Laura. Excuse me. Hi, Laura. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm thrilled anytime anything to do with affordable housing comes up. So I'm really
Me too.
glad to have you here. I do have a question. Before my question, though, I just want to commend you on the preferred site characteristics, including ability to walk to the city center, and especially the recognition of the bike path as a form of transit. So often that's sort of seen as like recreation, but to use that sort of recognize how people are using that already as a way to connect their daily lives, and being able to tie that to more housing, I think would be a really great opportunity in Easthampton. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I was just curious, you mentioned the 2 school sites, and I looked in the application, it said sort of there might be one other potential site. And from there, I guess it's 2 questions. One, is there anywhere else specific that you're already looking at? And then beyond that, just what does that process look like to identify things beyond what is already being done?
Yeah, excuse me. 1 second. So because of just the timing of synchronicity with the schools, we're committed to kind of looking at those buildings. Because of the timing of the recent publication of the housing production plan, which has, if you look within it, 4 case studies of sites already. So an architect, site planner, did some site plans already for 4 sites in Easthampton. We committed to look deeper at least one of those. So it's a little scattershot. I use the multiple listing service. We do a lot of word of mouth talk. In some cases, if we know that there's an area that seems really like proximate to things, an area that we would prefer, we'll do mailings to owners, just saying, hey, we're looking for property, and call us if you want to sell. We did that in Amherst recently on Northampton Road because we just identified that this would be a good location, and we just reached out to owners there. So it's a little opportunistic. Real estate development is just opportunity driven. You can have a great site and the seller just isn't ready to sell it, or the price isn't right, or price is inflated and they haven't come down. And I wish it were more of a science, but there's a little bit of arbitrariness to it. So we use a lot of different methods to try to find properties. And we'll work closely with the planning department as well, because they know a lot about the properties in town.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other committee members have questions? Then I'm going to move to Jeff. Jess, go ahead.
Oops. Not necessarily a question. I know Laura well. I know what Valley does. They're incredible at what they do for affordable housing development in the Valley and in our region. I do want to this is more for the committee in terms of why I fully support this application and why I think an activity like this is really important. In that, I've been on both sides of the table. I've been on the planning side, I've been on the development side. And in the planning side, we often have, big policy goals that we're always shooting for, that we really are trying to chase, affordable housing being one of those. When I worked on the affordable housing side, I never realized how incredibly complicated and complex it is to build affordable housing. And so going through an activity like this or process like this, I think will help narrow down what properties make sense. I can give you an example of a property in Easthampton on Everett Street that was deed restricted by the city council close to 20 years ago with an affordable housing restriction that had grant money tied to it that has never been developed. Why? Because it's too small and it's not financially viable. Had the city understood that at the time, going through a process like this, maybe they wouldn't have tied up that property, which now still continues to sit vacant and dilapidated. So I think that going through a process like this, handing it over to somebody who knows this industry inside and out, knows how the financing works, knows how to do the site analysis, hiring consultants, engineers, builders to really map it out, will really help us reach that goal of adding more units of affordable housing in Easthampton.
Any other committee members? All right, Jeff, you wanted to say something? I have one big question. I am excited that Valley is looking at the schools. My biggest love for those 2 schools would be, can we turn them into affordable housing? They're right near downtown. They match all the criteria for me. But is it feasible to turn those classrooms into apartments. And you'll be able to study that, Laura, and give us that. What's the timeline when an RFP might come? We're looking at, those won't be declared surplus until everybody's in the new school. So we're looking at 2 or 3 years, right?
Not exactly. So we are, we're piling on a lot of resources to the school. It just really hasn't seen daylight yet. But we have another consultant from another planning grant on board to help us through the RFP process, and that's got a lot of there's a lot of elements to that. And my goal has been to bring Laura into that fold, and so that Laura's work, my note here was like the vetting and studying of the schools is what can really feed the RFP process, and the committee and the people involved in that will have this information available to them before we release the RFP, because I think that's our goal, is to make this a really viable RFP. I don't know that, I think the financials is a really key component that Laura's team will help. I think that's going to be critical, that if we can know that before the RFP gets released, we just really want to calibrate this to the best we can. After that, I see, and the particulars are not ironed out, but I would see then Laura kind of shifting to other properties, because that's another really big component. And then Valley may decide to bid on the schools after that happens. But we have some coordination to do, and both consultants have agreed to coordinate on this, because the more information we have for the schools, the better our chances are of getting, or at first asking for the right thing, and then getting that proposal if we know it's realistic. So that's really the goal with the schools. I did want to say a couple of quick things. So Laura graciously has done this similar presentation to the Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership a couple of weeks ago. And so I just wanted the CPA committee to know that you have the full support of the Housing Partnership on this idea. The mayor's been aware of this. The mayor's been pushing myself and Jamie to do things, build a toolkit so that we can actually get affordable housing built. And so if you take a quick look back, and I give a lot of credit to Jessica too, we updated the housing production plan. So we needed that as the baseline. We're well over a year. The pandemic kind of stopped us for a little while, but all these moving parts are, I think, kind of now is the time. And I do want to say we're pursuing other funds to continue to help with the school as well. So we want to pile on some resources into the schools, and then we also want to explore potential other sites, because I think as much as the schools is going to be one of the most important projects in the next 2 years, I think we ought to be looking past them too and figure out what happens after that. So I just really urge the CPA community to hopefully find a way to fund this. It's a great project.
I, as a city council representative, we just passed 2 zoning amendments last night, which dealt with affordable housing in Easthampton. The city council is absolutely excited about anything with the word affordable housing in it. You will have no problem getting this done because I'm excited. Saw it, I couldn't believe it. I didn't know enough about it. Now that I do know, I will urge the committee, because we're on a council schedule that's once a month, I will urge the committee to vote on this evening, because this is what it is. The primary thing we do in the CPA is find affordable housing. And we talked last night about, even when we have accessory dwelling units, one of our counselors brought up the fact that that's not going to target exactly what this will target if we can get this done. And I've been on the council a long time, and I know what Valley CDC can do for this city. So I'm just going to ask the committee to fund this evening, because, and Jamie, I'm going to ask you to fast track it and get it to Barbara. We have 3 weeks before the next council meeting. If we can get it on the council's agenda, it goes to finance, and then it goes for a vote in August. You get your money in August at that meeting. And that's only because we don't have 2 meetings per month. But this is what we do. This is a big issue for CPA. And I'd like to hear what the committee thinks, because to me, I'm happy to vote for it. Harry, go for it.
Yeah, aren't these buildings going to go up for bid?
Oh, they will. This is just a preliminary look at. She's looking at everything, not just the building, and we don't know if the feasibility of turning those into apartments is even realistic. We won't know that, and there's going to be a lot of information. But they may find a site that's a lot more feasible sooner. And I'd love to see those buildings turned into affordable housing if it's feasible. But if you find a site, Laura, that's even better and sooner to be productive, then go for it. But this is just preliminary looking at all of that, finding out what's going to happen, Henry. That those buildings, if they're declared RFP, then we have to decide they will go out. And Valley would be a bidding, if I understand how that works, Jeff. They would be one of the people bidding on it if they decided this is a great place to do it. Correct, Jeff? So does that answer your question, Henry? Yes. Okay. Any other members think is this okay to pass this evening? Jess, shake your head if you think it's okay. I see Eric is here and Brad's here. If you want to say anything, you're welcome to. But I know you both support it.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, I do support it. I just wanted to echo what Jessica was saying earlier. Valley CDC has a really good track record in the area. They build really good products, and it's guaranteed to make a dent in our housing stock. So I think it's really great. But sounds like I don't need to convince anybody of anything. So thank you for all the work that you do.
I'm just getting to that to find out what the actual. So we're bidding at. We're approving $58,083, everybody. So if someone wants to make that motion,
I'll make a motion to approve the proposal with the number that you just said, Dan.
$58,053. We ought to have it on record of what it is.
I'll
have a second. Somebody second?
I did.
Okay.
Jay second.
Any further discussion? Okay, Jamie, roll call, please.
Andy.
I'm going to abstain. I don't really know enough about this to actually make an informed decision right now, so I'm going to abstain.
Dan.
Yes.
Ed is not on the committee anymore, and Joe is not here. Greg.
Yes.
Jay.
Aye.
Jessica.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Harry.
I'm going to say aye. I don't want to, but I'm going to.
And Scott.
Aye.
All right, so motion passes 7 in favor with 1 abstention.
So, Laura?
Yes.
Your presentation was fantastic. I'm going to ask that you send it to Jeff and Jamie. If they don't, the PowerPoint presentation and be available.
Yep.
It'll be August when it'll get to the City Council. Well, City Council Finance Committee might meet on the 14th of July, which you'll be invited to attend. But when this goes to City Council, Jamie, if we can get it on the July agenda, that's critical. You'll send all the information along with Laura's PowerPoint But believe me, the council will be thrilled that we're making an effort, and we're making an effort soon rather than later. So.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all the strong statements of support. I am interested in the two gentlemen who seem like they may not really know what we're doing. So please let me know if there are ways I can circle back to the committee. We're certainly happy to come back and do reports. It gets a little easier to understand when you start doing the tasks. So let me know what level of involvement you want to have as it goes forward.
Well, Andy and Harry, you're welcome to call Laura, call Valley CDC and get more information if you need it. Harry, go ahead.
I was on a planning board when that Parham Street Village went through, so I know all about it, okay? I don't need any facts from anybody. We must have had 6 months of meetings on that whole thing, so.
Okay.
You know?
All right.
All right.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next agenda item. Thank you, Laura.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
Historic Commission. John, is this you? $15,000 for the Hampshire Hamden Canal Historical Survey?
Yeah, I'm gathering. Mike, are you looking to chime in here?
Oh, Mike is here. Okay, I see Mike. I didn't realize he was here. Mike, you want to introduce this, please? He's unmuted. You having trouble, Mike? By the way, I'll take this opportunity to tell all of you, this is the last remote meeting. The next meeting in July will be in conference room 1, as per the fact that the building is open on July 1st. We will work on making it a hybrid meeting, so if anybody is out there that wants to come in to the meeting, they can. But we got to get back to normal. So as chair of the committee, I'm going to make that announcement for you, all of you. Mike, are you there? Mike, maybe you should, if you hear me.
Yeah, and I can talk about it.
All right. Well, John's here too. He obviously, you know about it. So go ahead, Jamie.
Okay. Mike and I have been meeting with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission and the towns of Southwick, Westfield, Russell, Southampton, and Northampton for the past year and a half. We've been working to try to get the Massachusetts section of the Northampton to New Haven Canal surveyed, archaeological surveys, inventoried, and potentially listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The Connecticut portion of the canal is already listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And over the past year and a half, this group has been meeting to basically gather information and develop an RFQ to hire a consultant that would go out and do the work. The committees received, or this group received 2 DLTA, District Local Technical Assistance grants from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission to fund this work to date. And going forward, we're looking for about $90,000 to continue this project and actually hire the consultant to do the survey work and to pay Pioneer Valley Planning Commission a small fee to administer that work as well. Because there are 6 communities, 5 of which have CPA, 1 of which does not, each community is being asked to contribute $15,000 towards this process. So Easthampton's share would be $15,000, and it would match, if you're including the DLTA grants and the other funds from the other communities, the total project's about $112,000. There are some representatives here tonight as well from the other communities and from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. Shannon Walsh and Eric Weiss have been primarily spearheading this from the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, and Cindy's here from Westfield. So I don't know if there's anything that anyone would like to add or say in support.
Well, first, before I go to all of you, I know it's nice to see, I know we got a letter from Southampton too. Mike, are you back? Can you tell us why this is important to the city? The survey is important, obviously, to the valley. Your mic is still not working, Mike. Unfortunately, John, I'm going to ask you to do the same.
Yeah, Mike, down in the bottom left where the microphone button is, click on the caret there and see if you need to reset it. Yeah, I mean, the first thing I'll say is there's an opportunity here that doesn't exist at other times. Working in conjunction with our other communities provides an opportunity that at any other point won't have the same gravitas as it does right now. I'll throw in that I believe I've mentioned to this group before as well that we've seen other communities that have, I think, made good work out of the information. I believe it's Plainfield, correct me if I'm wrong, that has actually recreated a portion of their canal and turned that into a park. We also recognize there are historic buildings that may be identified in this survey. So I think there's a lot of value to the historic record and to potential recreational and informational futures.
Thank you. Michael, do you agree with that? Shake your head. Or, okay, are you able to get your mic working? Probably not, huh? You're muted right now, Mike. You're muted on my screen. Now try. No, and I can't read your lips. I'm not that good, so I'm so sorry, buddy.
The other thing you can do is you can actually call in and use your phone for audio. There's a number. There should be a number on there, Mike.
Well, John's on the same committee, and John represented the committee's thoughts on it. I'm going to go to the people that are visiting. First, Eric, PVPC, you want to just support this?
My name is Eric Weiss. I'm the manager of Regional Municipal Services at the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. I've met and know a few of you. I wanted to say that our role in this has been the convener, to get the towns together to talk to each other. And with Shannon Walsh's expertise, she's our historic restoration person, we've been able to move this forward. We did commit 2 years of district local technical assistance funding to this because we saw, as John pointed out, that this is a unique regional opportunity in which we have a group of towns that want to work together, that are working together, and are working together with a purpose to get something done here. We have a draft of an RFP that we're working on, where it's under review by our chief procurement officer at this point in time. Maybe you've met her, maybe you know her. That would be Erica Johnson. We are excited as the regional planning agency about a project like this because of what it represents to the region from the historic value point of view. We have also worked closely with the Mass Historic Commission, and we've had them review the RFP as well, and they've given us some very specific language of what they'd like to see in the RFP. So they are fully aware. The Mass Historic Commission is fully aware of what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish here. With that, I think if we can hear a little bit from Shannon. She has a little bit more of the historical detail than I do. I'm more the manager of making sure that we move all the parts in the right direction and get all the towns together. And Shannon knows more about the historical detail. And Shannon, I believe she's here.
Thank you. Shannon, go for it.
Sure, yep, and I feel very legit because I'm actually in Easthampton right now. I'm at the Williston Galbraith Field where my daughter's having soccer practice, so go Easthampton. So yeah, I'm really excited to have another year to work on this project. I started at PVPC in 2017, and one of the first calls that I got was from Southwick because they have been, as everyone else, trying to document their portion of the canal, and that's when I first heard about how it really requires the documentation of the entire length of the canal in Massachusetts, which involves these 6 municipalities. Mass Historic has been helping us get the language together because past efforts kind of stopped there because they didn't meet the criteria. As with your previous applicant, the first part of anything is documentation and understanding what you have. So that's really what this is looking at, trying to understand where the canal is, what remains, the built resources, like were mentioned. We discovered partway through that part of the canal actually is on the National Register, the Lockville Historic District in Southampton. So it's really just connecting those dots, and we've been lucky to have regional canal historian Carl Walter working with us. He worked on this project early 2000s, and it got to MHC and was denied because it didn't meet some of their criteria. So we are so lucky to have him helping us along and making sure that we're getting it right. I think that, as was mentioned, documenting the canal, understanding the canal, but particularly mapping the canal is essential. And James Thompson from Northampton, the GIS coordinator, has been working with data that we've given him, including Jamie went out and got data points with her phone, and I've gone out, Cindy from Westfield, we went out on a field trip and got data points to try to straighten out the map and really understand the center point of the canal to get the mapping right. So I'm excited this project has gotten to this stage, and we're looking forward to hopefully putting it out to bid so that a consultant who has the archaeological expertise that's required to be able to get the state permits to do this, and also an understanding of mapping and LiDAR, so you could do mapping in an unobtrusive way, can take it to the next level.
I wanted to add one more thing if I could.
Sure.
The other piece is that if you're wondering who the bidding entity is, it's the PVPC. And so that's why we're asking for a little bit of money to support our management of it. We're trying not to burden your planning department amongst all the other things that it's got to do, but we are trying to make sure that we're well coordinated with Jamie in particular here. And Jamie's been great through this process, so that we can make sure that this moves in the direction it's supposed to move.
I don't know. Our planning department has nothing to do. They might be able to do. Cindy, go ahead. You're from Westfield, I understand?
I am, yes. I'm the chair of the Historical Commission in Westfield. And when Shannon said we had a field trip, we spent the entire day across Hill and Vale trying to find our canal through Westfield, which is quite long. I think we have one of the longest sections of the canal. And it was fascinating to find the remnants of what was left of the canal. And we have several different routes that we followed. And I had never done it before. And I encourage you all to go out and see the part of the canal in your town, because it really is very interesting. But there is a heightened awareness of the canal now, too. For Westfield's 350th, 2 years ago, we built an actual float of a canal boat, which kind of renewed interest in the canal. We loaned it to Southwick for their parade, which unfortunately was canceled last year, but I think they are going to have in October of this year. But it is out there. We spent a lot of time on this canal boat. We would love to loan it to any other community that would like to use it in a parade or whatever you can think to use it for. It was built on a flatbed truck. It has to be transported to your town, but please feel free to know that we have it, and we'd love you to use it. I encourage you to support this. We're going to be bringing it up to our CPC in 2 weeks in Westfield. We've already prepped them on it, and there is a lot of interest in it. I love the idea that we're sharing it among the 6 towns, so it's not a burden for any town. 15,000 compared to a lot of the requests we get through CPC. 15,000 is very small, relatively speaking. So we really would encourage your support on this. And Southwick has already voted it through, I believe, right, Shannon? I think Southwick has it. Westfield will be next. We're hoping you will, and then the other 3 towns as well.
Yeah, if I could jump in real quick, Southwick actually has a mitigation fund. That's why they've been working on this for so long. There was a cellular tower that was put up, and for mitigation, it has to go towards documentation of the canal. That's why they've been trying for so long, but they were always told by MHC, you have to get all 6 municipalities to work together. So they have the money earmarked, but it wasn't until now that they had this wonderful spirit of cooperation. And we started meeting really during the pandemic, and we met almost every single month all the way through to the end of last year, and then kicked it up again when it was funded. So I commend all of the in-kind volunteer time from each municipality that's gone into helping with this planning process.
Jamie, refresh my memory. It's Southampton, Easthampton, and Westfield. What are the other 3 communities?
Northampton, Southampton, Easthampton, Russell, Westfield, and Southwick.
Okay, so is this 15,000 contingent in your mind on whether all of the communities also approve it? Or am my reason for asking that, if one of the communities says no, does that balloon the amount for all the other communities? I'm just curious.
I don't think we've talked about that contingency. I think the expectation has been that because this, it's a small ask to each community, and it's leveraging a lot of in-kind and other matches, that the expectation was, when we were talking about it in the group, that it would get funded. But the $15,000 that we're asking for is, and Shannon can probably talk to this a little bit better, but the actual cost for the archaeological work is going to go into RFQ. So we're basing the cost to do the work off of past projects that are similar, but no one's actually done in recent memory a project of this magnitude. So it could be that the bids come in and they're $60,000 as opposed to the $80,000 that we're expecting. And in that case, we wouldn't use all of the money that's appropriated from each community.
Well, I guess I'll ask Shannon, do you feel like this is you're pretty optimistic that all of the communities will say yes to this? I mean, I see it as very helpful myself. So.
Yeah, I think so. Southwick already has the money. They just have to have the project, and it has to be towards documentation. And the other 4 municipalities that have CPA have put in applications, or like Cindy said, have introduced the applications. It was just trying to time it right for when it was ready to go out to bid. And then Russell has a feeder canal, so Russell was the municipality that would have to come from a different source of funding. But as Jamie said, that part of the challenge with this is there's no project to compare this to. So we were looking at survey and planning grants, like Easthampton just got the one for the Main Street Historic inventory. Those are typical. And then there's reconnaissance surveys of a whole town, and then there's archaeological surveys. This is like a little bit of all of those things. So we're hoping that we're overestimating the cost just to allow for everything. And the fact that James Thompson has done pretty much all of the preliminary mapping through Northampton, that is a really big incentive. Usually you don't give a consultant digitized maps to work with. You tell them to make the map.
Dan, I have an additional comment. This is Eric Weiss.
Yeah.
In item 3A in the RFPQ, it says the funding for this RFPQ is based on the availability and approval of local funding by the participating communities of Easthampton, Northampton, Russell, Southampton, Southwick, and Westfield, and will not exceed $82,000. And so what we're saying here is that to move the whole thing forward, we have to have all the money.
So basically, all the communities have to say yes, except perhaps not Russell, because they don't have CPA funding. But
yeah, that's the wild card, and that's the one we're dealing with up front.
Okay. This committee, do you have any questions of these, of anybody, Eric or Scott or anybody? Anybody? This is a small amount, and by our rules, we can approve it in one evening. I have no problem with that personally. And again, it sounds like it's contingent on all the communities participating, and I'll let Jamie work that out. It doesn't have to be in our, it seems as though it's in the, as Eric just said, it's in the, what is that, RFP or whatever, what are we?
Yeah, it's going to be an RFP. It's right, so go with RFP.
All right, anyway, it is within our rules that we could have passed this, and again, because of the council schedule, this won't get to council approval till August. If it's ready for July, we're piling work on Jamie, of course, but I have no problem. Does any committee member have any issue with voting on this evening?
Not an issue.
Everybody okay? You nod your heads. It's okay to vote on it? Yes? All right, then I need a motion to approve the $15,000 for the historical survey of the canal.
I'll make that motion.
Jay motion, Scott second. Jamie, any further discussion? All right, Jamie, roll call, please.
Andy.
Yes.
Dan.
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
Jay,
Aye.
Jessica,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Harry,
Aye.
and Scott.
You're muted, Scott, but you did not.
Aye.
All right,
Yeah.
motion passes by a vote of 8 in favor and none against.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Just so you know, what happens is this will go to the Finance Committee. Jamie, do you think you can get this to the City Council? You have some time.
We have 3 weeks to get everything in, 2.5 weeks to get everything in.
It'll be moved in July's meeting. It'll be moved to the Finance Committee. So Shannon, especially you and Eric and John, it'd be great if you came to that Finance Committee meeting to explain this whole thing. That'll be July 14th. You can put that on your calendar because I've already scheduled a meeting.
Okay.
And then it goes to public hearing for the full council in August, and you'll be needed at that meeting in case they have questions. So
What day in August would that be?
First Wednesday in August, whatever day that is. Does anybody have their calendar up?
And Dan, do you expect that those meetings will be in person or on Zoom or will play by ear?
The Finance Committee meeting most likely will not be in person. We're trying to work out the details of what the City Council wants for committees. And the main reason for that is there's only 3 people on a committee and you have to have a quorum. So we're looking at that. And we're not moving, this committee is going to meet in person in the council, but the council is looking at August before we start meeting in person at committee level. But council will be meeting in person in the council chambers in July and August. So just so you know, but you'll get that information from Jamie. She'll email all of you. Okay. And thank you, Cindy from Westfield. Hopefully you get a good yes from that. Okay. We're going to move on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We have an opportunity to finally get Reservation Road purchased, huh? You want to tell us about this? In a brief way, I know you want to share the screen with I know where Reservation Road is. I mean, this has been on the books for a while. My biggest question is you want a commitment, I think it's 32%. What's the bottom line? So if you can get to that at all, it's hard for me to vote on something when I don't know what the figures are. So
right. Yep.
Go ahead, present. Sorry.
Yep. No, I appreciate that. I would like to share my screen in a second, but it's hard for me. I get lost in the Zoom screen pretty quick. So I provided a cover letter to the committee, and you know my goal. I think my goal for tonight is to talk through some of the elements of what's happening. And the ideal situation is if the CPA committee is supportive of this, to issue a letter of support. And I'll try to get to your question, Dan. I don't want to jump too far right to it, but I think that's the goal, is a letter of support. I did ask in the cover letter the idea of maybe a special meeting in July, but as I'm going through the funding package, the funding source, the guidance, I don't know that that's going to be necessary. But what I wanted to do is make the committee aware that, you know, we are the city, we're trying to negotiate with the landowners to come to a conservation purchase here. For those who don't know, there's at the reservation roads off East Street, it goes up and up and up, and currently just dead ends at a gate. And there's land beyond the gate that's owned by a private landowner. In 2008, the planning board endorsed an A&R, which is the process to divide property into 5 lots. And, you know, since then, you know, I think, you know, we should look back, and there was a housing crisis that happened. We went into a recession in 2009, basically. And so that laid dormant for quite a long time. And then, you know, the A&R had a condition that the access had to be upgraded to a certain standard. And starting, you know, almost 2 years ago, the landowner started to pursue how do we bring the road up to some standards and start developing these. It came all the way back to the planning board. And, you know, there was a glitch in this process, which there became a question about the ownership of the road, the access road up there. and that it actually created this renewed opportunity to discuss a conservation purchase rather than the area being developed. So if some of you are aware, there was a flurry of activity on social media about trying to preserve the land. Residents organized and got a signature signed by I wanted to make sure I was clear that there's a little over 1,000 people. I don't know that all of them were Easthampton residents, but that's a rather large petition. And then in my packet to the committee, I pulled out some of the most relevant letters that were received by the planning board in the last several months about this, showing, kind of demonstrating the potential value to Easthampton residents of maybe securing this property. And I also included excerpts from our very recently completed and approved open space and recreation plan. And so if you've looked at that, Mount Tom in general as an aesthetic resource was ranked very high, and then as a sort of a natural resource also ranked very high. And since our previous plan, the 2014 plan, maybe it was the 2012, it's been identified that we should be trying to preserve the foothills of Mount Tom. So in a long windup, what we're looking at doing is potentially applying for a land grant. So it's LAND. It's a local acquisitions for natural diversity. So this is kind of the complementary grant program. We've been using the PARC grant, the PARC. That's the program we use to acquire and build the trail further down on East Street. And the land grant is more oriented towards land that has high habitat value, or provides connectivity, or builds on protection of open space that's next to other open space. And if you really look at this parcel on Reservation Road, it is in an area that supports endangered species. So the Natural Heritage Program has it mapped as a critical landscape and a habitat. So we feel like we have this kind of compelling situation to try. I feel urged, as your planner, based on all the feedback, public comments, and interest in this property to try to move this forward. And so well, the negotiation with the landowner is, I would say, midway through. We are all aware of this deadline. We're trying to hit. The grant has to be submitted on July 14th, and there has to be an appraisal, which is kind of the missing piece of the puzzle. And that's what we don't have that yet. So that's the missing piece that Dan, you were asking for. What are we talking about here? So what we do know is that there was some, I guess the owners went through a tax abatement process. So they sought a tax abatement, and it went to the appellate tax board, which is the process to appeal and get a different tax value for the land. And that had established a number. And so that's kind of our baseline that we want to go off of for the purpose of this discussion. And again, the way the land grant works is we will ultimately have to have a vote to fund the entire acquisition cost. The land grant, if awarded, would reimburse us 68% of the value, which means we're looking for 32% as the city's contribution. So I know I'm doing a big windup, but I have to kind of give these details. We don't have the appraisal, so we don't know the exact value. But I think the dollar figure that we'd be talking to CPA about is between, roughly $125,000 would be the city's contribution to this, and then the remainder, there would be 68% in addition to that we'd be asking the land program to cover. So Yep.
Just let me ask you there. That's a lot less than I thought, because I know we spent quite a bit of money on Mount Tom North, right?
Correct.
Like 300,000 or 400,000, as I recall.
Yeah.
CPA. So that's a lot less than I thought. And is that because in your mind that's no longer developable property, given the fact that they didn't own the road? I mean, I'm curious if your figure might go up if the appraisal says, wait a minute, yeah, they could do it this way and it costs more, but.
It's you know, there's bits and pieces of this that will all contribute to this. The developability is a question. The road is a question, but I think the main thing I would emphasize is that the acreage is a lot less. So this is about 5.5 acres.
Oh yeah, there you
whereas
go.
The other parcels that we acquired was 23 acres. So most of that cost difference comes from the acreage, the size of this. What I'm trying to figure out is, if the committee has questions, I can go through the maps if possible, if that makes sense. But I just wanted to know your willingness to move forward with this like kind of project that's supported by the community, so that we can continue forward with the grant narrative. I would be coming back to the committee for a formal vote of a specific amount.
You just want a letter of support right now, a letter of support?
Yes, but I think the letter of support will be more meaningful if it acknowledges that the community is willing to support the 32% contribution. So that's the important part. I would come back for a full request for the actual allocation. And then if my memory is correct in the process, I would also be pairing that vote from CPA with a vote from City Council. Would have to vote to authorize the other portion. And then if we're awarded, it gets reimbursed.
And if we're not awarded, nothing happens. It's just a
correct. And if our negotiations fall apart, we wouldn't be doing anything.
Nobody's losing any money. I have no problem with that, because if it's like 125, let's say you thought, well, it might be 200. Those figures don't bother me, considering the very huge public interest in preserving this. Personally, I don't think that bothers me. Now, if you came back for the actual figure and it suddenly ballooned to $500,000, we could say no at that time, even though we showed a letter of support now. But I'm going with your educated guess that 125 in that ballpark range is where you are. I have no problem with that, committee members. And all we're doing is giving a letter of support for 32%. And I think the community really wants, and I certainly want, Mount Tom preserved. So I'm happy to give a letter of support if, with the knowledge that, if the figure changes drastically, we might say no. But Harry, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, why don't the property owners sell it to the reservation road? Why don't they sell it to the state? We'll take it right out of Easthampton's hands.
We're in a position to try to see if we want to act on our open space plan and the things that we've set as goals. We're in a better position to lead this initiative. The concern that we have is that if we are not trying, then we will likely be letting the owners potentially try to develop it as 5 lots. And I think we're at this moment in time where we want to try. I think we're acting in good faith to try and show the support. If we balk or don't want to do it, they will, or at least what they're saying is they will pursue the development of it. And after that decision point happens, we will likely have no ability to negotiate with them. And I don't think we'll pursue a taking of it. And I don't know that the state is going to aggressively pursue it either. So we're at this, this is an interesting kind of negotiation, and it's really kind of a question to the community whether we want to try to preserve the land or say we're not interested in, and let the chips fall where they may. And I think we what I saw at the planning board was that they're willing to pursue it. they're willing to pursue the development of it. So this is kind of we have this moment, and I know like other people have talked to them. This is not necessarily a subject, but there's a new opportunity for us to be trying to coordinate something.
Right. Can I continue this?
Yes, go ahead, Harry.
If the city of Easthampton does buy that property, are we going to be updating that road to their property, or just the property is going to sit there?
Property would be the land would be preserved as is because it's prime habitat. Our goal would be to continue to provide pedestrian access. That was a lot of the sentiment that came through the planning board meetings, was that a lot of people walk from the Clark Street area up to and access Mount Tom and all of its resources through this corridor, and that would be maintained. That's the goal, is to maintain the pedestrian access.
Yeah, that road is pretty bad right now. It's all washed out. It's it's not even easy walking, to be honest with you.
Well, that's a lot better than having houses built up there, though. Anyway, I saw Greg's hand up.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing it forward. I think it's worth, considering. And so I appreciate the conversation, especially because I know there was a lot of activity in the community around this issue. I'm not even on social media, and I heard about it. So that means, if I hear about it, then it means that a lot of other people are talking about it, I think. But I'm having a hard time visualizing it, Jeff. And I know you mentioned the maps, and I just, I feel like it's an important enough issue that it would be helpful to kind of just have you lead us through so I can picture this a little bit better. Sure. And part of my question too is about the road, because I don't really fully understand who owns what between the state and the city and the private owners. Who owns the road? Where does our current responsibility begin and end?
Yep, those are good questions, and they're really kind of at the root of one of the issues that is really giving us this opportunity to explore this. I was trying to find. I apologize for scrolling through all that.
The map up above.
I thought there was. All right, I will rely on this first map. As you, if you know where Clark Street is, you have to know where Clark Street is, and you're taking Clark Street to the end, which intersects with East Street. You take a left off of Clark, and almost immediately is Reservation Road. And so that is it's a relatively long road. It goes up there. It's developed. There are houses, and then this image shows where this last house here, if you can see the number, this is 40. This is the last house on the right side of Reservation Road if you're going up, and then maybe that's a 33. That's the last house on the left, and that has a driveway that pitches down. The property at 40 kind of pitches just kind of a little bit uphill. And in this area, there's a gate. The gate was installed by DCR. The presumption was that the city owns this stretch, which was the presumption in 2008 to allow these lots to get created. And then, there is a question about the ownership of the road that will take, if it's a private landowner, will take 1 or 2 years to flesh out. And then we'll reveal a process after that to continue their development. And so the owners are trying to resolve this where they become whole on their end, and the city gets an acquisition purchase at the end of this. So I had envisioned pictures if I didn't include.
Yeah, can you go back to the drawing that might show it off of East Street? I don't know whether any of the other these maps here show it. Where's East Street?
Yeah, I don't have a good one that shows.
What's that one? No, that's not.
I don't have a good one that shows the entire stretch of East Street. I mean, the entire stretch. What this shows is, so the same, It's generally the same view as the other map that we just had. You can see in this lower left is lot 1. So that's the last house on the right. And what they show is the 5 lots going up, and the opportunity for development would be 5 additional houses up. It's very steep, but it's up on the hillside. And I don't know, I know, Greg, I didn't necessarily answer your question, but I thought I had included pictures, and I apologize if I didn't. It's a gravel base road that used to be the access to Mount Tom, and it's walkable, and I think people bike on it, and it's a very viable access from basically East Street up Reservation Road.
Yeah, I've been up it, and that's how complicated this project is. I think for me, even though I'm somewhat familiar with Reservation Road and I've run up it and hiked up it during the pandemic and so forth, but just trying to piece together the different lots and understand how things fit together. One of those illustrations you showed had the last house on the right and then the 5 lots, and it had some sort of cut kind of coming down through the middle of the lots. Was that a drainage or a road, or what was the
what I believe it was is there is an easement for the city has a water tower. It's an unutilized water tower. That's probably this one. This cut. Yeah. So it's off of this upper section of Reservation Road here. It's a cleared path, and it kind of turns right and it goes up the hill further, and it keeps going onto this this adjacent parcel that contains an old water tower, and so that's an easement that the city maintains.
But that's currently a dirt path or dirt road, right? It's cleared.
It's cleared of vegetation, and I don't know the material, but yeah, it's a path. Yes.
Okay.
Mike Serwick is saying it's an underground storage tank.
Underground storage tank. Thank you, Michael. Mike.
Yeah. Just so you know, I just looked. Google Street View has that road all the way up to the gate. If you wanted to show anybody anything off that.
So the question is
I know all about it. I don't need to see it to know that people want it preserved, and it's a habitat. So we're not looking to make it a park, right, Jeff? We're looking to keep it as is. We might improve access, as Harry said. It's terrible, but only walking access.
Yeah, I think
we're not looking at major maintenance costs in the future, correct?
That would not be the anticipated goal. The goal is to maintain pedestrian access, and that's about it. DCR has an interest of not resurrecting vehicular access here, but we want to try to protect the land and the habitat. While we have this opportunity.
Did I see John? Did I see your hand up, buddy?
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to chime in that for one thing, I think one of the things that's a little hard to, if you're not familiar with this spot, to conceptualize is the elevation. And I guess I just wanted to reiterate, having been a part of the master plan, I know this came up a lot, and protecting the ridgeline was of major concern to our populace. And during that process, we recognized that the ridgeline is underprotected. And I just want to point out, not only do I use that for access to Mount Tom myself for recreation, but if you're at Captain Jack's, let's say, this is a part of the ridge you will plainly see. If this becomes developed, my fear is that this would be a slippery slope. And if this ridgeline starts becoming developed, it will significantly change what Mount Tom looks like for everyone who has a view of Mount Tom. So I just kind of want to put in there that I think it's a little hard to visualize how this would affect if this gets developed. It's one of the things we talked about back in the master plan development. And I think there's others here that can back me up on that. It's grave concern to the town that the ridgeline was susceptible to unsightly development. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, and as a follow-up to John, during that master plan process, there was a proposal to put forth zoning for hillside protection bylaw by a number of members of the community, and it got completely shot down. So if ridgeline protection is still a priority to members of the community, then acquisition, this is presuming that a zoning wouldn't pass nowadays, maybe it would. But maybe acquisition is the only way to go if that is of the concern to protect the ridgeline. I do want to say a couple things though, and this is just more on the permitting side, that, you know, this is hard for me because I mean, protecting the ridgeline and protecting the mountain is huge. It has always been a huge priority in our open space plan. There has always been 3 areas that we've identified as priority areas, Mount Tom being one of them. My developer side wonders how feasible it actually is to develop these areas, whether because is it a public way? Is it not a public way? Were those lots divided in error? The permitting costs and the construction costs to actually build a house there would be off the charts. But there are people who have money in their pocket and may be willing to do it. And I think that's where you know, I would, even though, you know, we've talked about this with Conservation Commission often with looking at properties that had a huge amount of wetlands on it. And did we really want to put our city money towards protecting a property that has no threat of being developed because it's got regulations that back behind it? In this case, I think that if somebody has enough money and enough motivation and they're willing to pay the legal costs and the construction costs to blast a road, to construct a road, to put an incredibly complicated drainage system, you know, if there's a will and they've got the money, they'll find a way to do it. And I think what's concerning to me to some extent is that the property owners are still looking at that as a viable option. And so, I, you know, I'd like a little bit more information. I would wish the appraisal was available so that we could actually have some more information on, in the appraisal process, what they value the parcels to be and how developable they think the parcels will be, because they would be looking at all of those different things. They'd be looking at all the environmental constraints. They'd be looking at how viable that roadway actually is to be able to build a lot off of it. Without having that appraisal, you know, I'm okay with putting a letter of support forward, but I would, before we formally vote on any major amount, any money, I'd like to have more information.
Oh, I agree, Jess, and I also think that's what's coming. I mean, Jeff, you're not going to come in with an application for dollars until you have all that information, obviously. So I am willing to go to Jess's point about how much it costs to get it developed. I was shocked when Parsons School was done and the amount of money put into that. There's people out there with money to burn, and I don't want to take the chance. This is a beautiful area and I agree with John. If that's developed, maybe some rich guy comes in and buys the whole thing and builds a mansion on it. I mean, that could happen because they have the money to do all that Jess just said. I think we should protect it. And it isn't a major amount of money when it comes to that kind of protection. We have spent money protecting open space out of CPA. And when you look at those costs, this isn't a lot. And I guess it's a ballpark at $125,000. But we also, committee, have a way out. If it comes back that we have to spend $500,000, then we have a big debate going. But we don't know. I think if it helps, number one, keep the landowners ready to participate, because we're saying we are willing to go 32%. And if it helps to get that land grant, why not do it? Why not? We're not really risking any real dollars now. We're just saying, yeah, we're interested. Is that a fair statement, Jeff? We're saying we're interested. We want to provide the support, but it's not like we're giving you a blank check. You got to come back and get the appropriation.
Yeah, no, I appreciate all this discussion. Yes, there's no blank check. I think, you know, I guess what I want to say is that we're negotiating with the landowner, and we just need the appraisal to, you know, support where we're at. And so I'm here to present some numbers that, you know, will not balloon based on where we're at in discussions. I think what we're talking about is a maximum. And it is, as Dan said, it's to show us that we're interested, that we want to be engaged, that we want to try. I think everyone's in a tough spot, even the property owners. I mean, they brought forward a plan and they got the plan endorsed, and they've been relying on that plan for years. And so, to just tell them it's not developable and that we are not going to pay anything for it, we want to try to meet them where it's reasonable. And I think that's where we're trying to get to the most reasonable outcome is each party is going to give a little bit. We're going to give a little bit more, and they're going to take a little less. And because we really want to try to demonstrate that this is an important area for us. So I appreciate all Jess's concerns too. The thing that makes me the most nervous is that aside from, it's a big question about the ownership. They had plans that did not require blasting for the road, and that had a homeowners association for the maintenance, and had fire department approval, had the city engineer's approval, and was really, at least for our process, was feasible to continue to develop this. And what makes it a little bit more, compelling is that the structure that I've understood is that they would potentially spread the burden of building the road amongst each landowner who would acquire a piece of property, so that it would be more modest for each person who would buy a lot. They'd be buying the lot and they'd be buying a portion of the road construction. So it's not as if one person would bear all the costs, at least in their structure. And so I am trying to be responsive, and I wanted to bring this out to this committee because if we wanted to play hardball, we'd be playing a game of chicken. We would say, we don't think it's developable, show us you're wrong. And I think at that point we would have missed this opportunity, and they would, they will try everything they can do to get it developed. And so we're at that point. So I think the letter of support, I'd be really comfortable if the letter identified this CPA's willingness to go to 32%, and not to exceed 125,000. In terms of the letter of support, I think that's a really comfortable spot. And then knowing that we will get an appraisal, and either we'll continue working forward or we'll kind of be done. And I will come back if I'm actually asking for the allocation. I'll come with an appraisal to kind of support where we're at. And then, I would then also have to bring this to City Council to show that, they have to, it's a little bit more mechanical at that point, but City Council would have to vote to fund the 68% portion, knowing that no funds are being expended if we don't get the grant.
We've done that before.
Yeah, we've done that. That's been the pattern.
I was just going to say, follow up, Jess.
I just want to say I appreciate Jeff's details with what they've sort of already scoped out for development possibilities. I think that's good information to have. And I would also pose, this may be stepping outside CPA realm a little bit, but both to our city councilor and to our city planner to maybe reconsider a hillside zoning protection. Add that to your list of zoning bylaws to take a look at, because it may be worth a revisit 20 years later.
Yeah, and the risk we have, right? So we could kind of not do this and pursue the zoning change, but what we're trying to avoid is that one project that everyone looks at and says, shoot, we should have stopped that. I used to work in Amherst, and the Bank of America right on Main Street right on Pleasant Street was the one. It's so ugly, and it's the one that started their design review board. And we don't want to have that. Right. We don't want to have 5 houses up there and then pursue. We want
to be proactive, not reactive. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, great. Yep. No, that makes sense.
Let me go to Scott, please.
I think that last point was really well said, Jeff. And I think that's the whole reason to do it. And the other thing I would say with all this is that some of these problems are things that can get fixed with money, and the market value. If they can build houses there, the market value of those houses has gone up in the past couple of years a lot. The potential market value a lot. And so it seems like sort of every day that goes by, we'd be in a worse position. So there's no reason to wait. I feel comfortable knowing, from all this of voting on voting in support of a letter. Do we have letter text or what's that process? I'd like to make a motion, but I know we need a letter in order to make a motion from.
No, I think if we trust Jamie and Jeff to get me a letter, I'll sign it as chair of the committee. I saw Harry. I have another comment, but Harry, I saw your hand up.
Yeah. Have we ever determined who owns that road?
It's still, I think it's still a question mark, right, Jeff?
If the state owns the road, they cannot build up there. Why can't we find out who owns that road? Is it that difficult?
That's one of the decision points that we're at. We will not do it because it'll be tens of thousands of dollars of attorney fees to figure that out. Right now, that's the question to the landowner is, do they want the terminology that's been used is the quiet title. So they kind of have this choice to try to work on a conservation purchase or to pursue quieting the title, which they've signaled that if they have to move towards quieting the title, then they're not going to look back to a conservation purchase. So yes, Harry, you're correct that there is a question about the ownership of the road. We're pretty confident right now that if the state owns the road, and we're not talking about more vehicular access, then we should be able to maintain that's the goal, is to maintain the pedestrian access up there. And so in some of the discussions that we've had, I guess this might be helpful. I don't know if it is, but in the lead up to the planning board information is DPW is ready to accept Reservation Road up to the gate. The city has been maintaining it for 20 years. And they've been maintaining it, and there's some infrastructure, water, sewer in the road up to the gate. So we want to know that DPW is going to say it's fine. We will accept that. And then either way, the next question is, whoever owns it, would they be willing to give permission for a private landowner to upgrade it and then maintain it thereafter? And I think, we're not sure where that would go, but it's a huge risk to push that.
I have to say that good lawyers can get around anything, and I don't think we should take that risk, waiting on this with the hope that because the state owns the road, it can't be developed. I personally feel like we should move forward with this. Again, we're not committing real dollars because we don't have it yet, but why take the chance that can be developed? Somebody can get around the road or whatever the problems. I think I saw Scott first, then John. Scott?
Just quick question. What about the gate? Like, who owns the gate, or who has the lock to the key to the lock to the gate?
Good question. Our understanding right now is that it's a DCR gate, and no one can pinpoint how or when it got there. But if you've been up there, the pedestrian access just simply kind of goes right around it. What my understanding is right now is that DCR does not want vehicular access back to that part of the reservation. It's a staffing issue. Their goal is to send vehicles to either side of the state reservation entrance. So one is Route 5, one's on 141, but they haven't expressed much concern about the pedestrian access at this point. So that kind of gate would probably stay there. And I will say, maybe this is kind of like Harry's question, is that if we really push the ownership of the road, DCR would likely move the gate up to the end of wherever this road is improved, and the gate would be there. And they can still prevent the vehicular access just several hundred feet up farther.
I saw John, then I'll go back to you, Harry. John, your hand was up.
I was just going to make a pitch for how one is, I think this is an opportunity to establish a way of doing business with landowners. And I think that for one thing, I would just commend any effort that's being made to meet people halfway because, again, I would remind the committee, this is not the only piece of property on the mountain that could potentially have this kind of discussion. And I feel like establishing the way we do business now and having the trust and good faith of our landowners would be a good move early in the game now, so that if and when it does come up again in the future, we have established a track record of being a good partner in an endeavor like this. I just feel like it's a bit of an important move in a way early in the game. That's just, again, my 2 cents.
Okay, I want to kind of conclude this. So Harry, go ahead, finish up.
I was going to say that gate's been there since I was about 10 years old, so it's been there forever, you know? Because cars used to come down, up and down out of that highway for years, and it was like the same thing is down there on the end of Reservation Road, down by where it comes off by Hoyle. They closed that gate at 5 o'clock or 5:30, whatever time it was. They took the same thing up there. So now the road is unpassable, so they just keep it locked.
Okay.
Yeah, that used to be a regular road. You can just go up and down. I mean, that was for years until it finally got to the point where it deteriorated, where you can't drive anymore.
Well, DCR doesn't want people on it, so they're not going to improve it.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is fine with me. Committee, I would like to end this discussion. I'm willing to ask for a motion. The only thing I want to say, Jeff, is I don't feel we need to put the 125 in. If the committee wants that top line figure, I just don't want to tie our hands if it comes back and it's 130 or something like that. We're willing to do 32%. We know you've said, and our minutes will reflect that it's 125. If you come back and the appraisal is 120, 135, I don't think that'll hurt anything. I just want to hear what the committee thinks. I think the letter of intent, 32%, is fine with me. I don't think we need a figure in there because, again, without the appraisal, what is that figure? It's a guess. I mean, it's a good guess, but it's still a guess. And Jess, what do you think of that? Because I saw you not. Why do we need the 125 in the letter? Do we need it?
It's a little bit, I'm a little bit back and forth about it. I feel like it provides some assurance that it's not going to come back at some huge amount, but I do trust Jeff that he's done his due diligence. And, you know, if he's telling us that 125 is where he thinks it's going to land, I'm comfortable with that, with just leaving it as 32% in the letter.
Anybody else on that? I'd like to leave it at 32%. Is everybody okay with that? Greg?
Yeah, I mean, I see the reasoning for it, and I kind of, it was a question in the back of my mind. So I think I'm slightly in favor of leaving it in, or at least some indicating some bound or limit, even if it's, you know, an approximate range or something like that. I think it would be a responsible thing to do, mainly because the percentage is just, you know, you don't really know what your ultimate denominator is. So that's just my personal preference.
I like the idea of a range. I think that could be a happy solution potentially.
I'll tell you right now, if he came back with 200,000, I'd vote yes. I mean, I find that preservation of that ridgeline so important. And I don't think it's going to come back that way. But if it's 125 and everybody says, oh, it was supposed to be 125 and it's now 175, what does that mean coming forward? So, I mean, I don't know, Jeff, what do you think?
It's a good, you know, I thought I had it thought out too. I'm inclined to have the 125 in the letter, you know, because what I'm trying to think through too is we'll be submitting the land grant application, and, you know, the 32% and people at the state have been, you know, correctly telling me, and I think it's important for me to relay this to the committee, is that for the land grant and park grant, it's not a match. It's our contribution to it. So like that the folks at the state are really they like to emphasize that, and I think it's important. So what I am looking at as a bumper is that I don't want to open up a letter that I guess the 30, yeah, I guess, okay. So I guess the 32% is fine. I think that's the commitment that we're trying to make. I'm okay if it has a cap in there of a 125, so I could go either way.
So this letter goes to the land people?
Yeah, this is really just.
If it says that we're saying only up to 125, it seems to me that's a restriction that might give them pause.
Yeah, the 32%.
I mean, we're restricting the amount we're going to give you rather than say 32%. So I don't want to lose the grant. I just thought of this. What if they look at that and say, wait a minute, what if it's 150?
Right.
I don't know. You know more about these grants, but why put something in there that gives them concern?
Sure.
Is that logical? That makes sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be moving on this pretty quick.
Let Jeff finish then, Greg.
Sorry. Yeah. No. I mean, it's a pretty, it's a pretty fast-moving situation where we're at. I just didn't think that, based on your schedule and like there's a holiday coming up. I was going to take a vacation, and then the grant application's due July 14th. I wanted to get what I think is the most important thing is the acknowledgement that the city is willing to contribute 32% of the appraised value, because I think that that's really what it's not required. This letter is not required, but I think it just emphasizes that we had this meeting. The CPA committee, which is our contributing source, talked about it and supported it, hopefully unanimously or at least a majority. And that is narrative that we will build into this, along with the petition signed by over 1,000 people and the open space plan. And so this is just really to show the state that we're serious. I will have to, if for some reason this number is way different than I'm anticipating, and I appreciate Jess's confidence, I'll have to come to this committee with some real hard explanations. But as of right now, I want the committee to know that we are in negotiation, and I really feel that we know where we want to land, and we're not susceptible to going a lot higher at this point. So
I'm going to trust your judgment. If you want the 125 in, I'll vote for it. I just want to make sure it's not.
Let's leave it out. The 32% contribution makes all the sense in the world, and I just want to give you guys some level of comfort that this should really not balloon. It shouldn't.
All right, Greg, what do you think of that?
I mean, I think there's a real easy way to not limit it and have a hard stop and just have a sentence in the letter that says our current understanding is that the value is, in this range or something like that. And just say that's what we're talking about, right? This is our current understanding is this. I think it just indicates to the public or whatever that, this isn't some limitless commitment or indication or whatever. It's just a statement of where the current conversation is. And we can do that without it being a hard stop or without somehow torpedoing the grant application. I
love that language. So Jeff, that's okay with me. Let's say our current understanding is that within the range of around $125,000 is what the CPA is looking at.
Okay.
And I like that because, as Greg said, the public might find out about this and they want to know what the bottom line is. It's great. And that doesn't restrict it. It's our current understanding. Well, our current understanding went up to 150. Okay, but we'll know better. So is everybody okay with that? Because I'd like to get this done. I'd like a motion to approve that I sign a letter that Jeff will approve. We'll write that includes 32% and the current understanding of 125,000. Somebody want to make a motion to that? Scott says he'll make the motion.
What Dan said.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for this is a letter that the chair of the committee will sign. Jeff, you put it together. We trust you. Any further discussion?
Yeah. Will you send that letter out? I mean, not for like editing or whatever, but I mean, I think, it'd be great for all of us to see the language before our next meeting or whatever. I mean, we support it. I just, if Jamie or somebody would do this, the courtesy.
Absolutely. After I sign it, make sure everybody gets it. So we have a motion on the floor. Jamie, can you give the roll call, please?
Andy.
Aye.
Dan.
Yes.
Greg,
Aye.
Jay,
Aye.
Jessica,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Harry,
Aye.
and Scott.
Aye.
The motion passes, 8 in favor, 1 absent.
Okay, so I'll just trust you to tell me when you want me to come in. I actually have a key fob now, so I can come in and sign it there, Jeff.
No, I appreciate that. It may be by the end of next week. This was a really important step. So now I have that, there's a million things going on all at once, but this will allow me to keep moving forward, and maybe by the end of next week I'll have the draft of the letter, and that works really well with the timeline. So I appreciate the ability to have the dialogue with this committee. It's really important as we try harder to do certain things. I just wanted to say really quick, a compliment. When you do look at the open space plan, we're really doing the things that we should be. We're looking at preserving open space on the outskirts, and at the same time, same thing tonight with the affordable housing development, we're going to look to develop housing where it's appropriate. And so if we're doing these two things at the same time, that's just great. And I think that's what we should be doing. So I applaud this committee for all its commitment and your time. So I really appreciate it.
Jeff, we really appreciate the work that you do. I mean, you're super talented and you're heading us in a really good direction. So thank you for being tireless and being such a good communicator on these issues.
And I don't know how you did it, because I thought way back people said, why can't we buy this land? And there was no interest, or the city didn't have a way of doing it. And I don't know how you accomplished this, but this is great, because I never thought this opportunity would present itself. I thought in a few years we'd see people building houses up there.
Sure. And I want to thank Jessica and Jamie and even Stuart. Going way back, we have a really good foundation of plans that we're updating them all, but the foundation is what really is. The whole thing is leaning in the right direction in terms of the foundational plans that we have. So I'm working as hard as possible, but it wouldn't be without like Jessica and Jamie and Stuart, because, and other people, but there's a lot of momentum, and that I can't take credit for all the momentum. So
very, very kind of you. Thank you.
Great.
So committee members, we have a discussion of Williston on here, the library, and I'm fried. I don't want to do that tonight. And secondly, I'd like the library here. I'd like Nora and the president of this, I think it's March, here when we make that discussion. So our next meeting, even if there's no applications in July, will be in person in conference room 1, and I get to see all your lovely faces straight on. And it will involve that. I do want to have that discussion, Jamie, okay? So regardless of whether or not we have other applications to deal with, that's what our next meeting will do, okay?
Okay, so I will be sure to invite Nora, the library director, to that meeting. Do you want to reach out to anyone from the library board, or? Yeah,
Marge, I think she's the president of the board.
Okay.
I mean, they make the ultimate decision on this, so, and that'll be informational. So you tell us how it can happen, what it will cost the CPA and all of that. And we'd like them to hear it, okay?
Great.
So that's the next meeting. That's at least one agenda topic, all right?
Can I just check that we're going to have a quorum for that July 15th meeting? Will we have
is everybody available for that meeting?
I will not be here.
I will not be there. I will not be able to be there in person.
What's the day again?
July 15th.
I don't know if I'll have a meeting in another community that night. I can't tell that far in advance, but as of now, I should be here.
I don't go anywhere.
I'm a maybe. It's audit season for me, so it's crunch time. I'll try to make it.
Okay. Well, and hopefully we get Joe McCoy to come to a meeting. Let's put that out, that meeting is going to happen. And so Joe knows about it, because we need him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. We need Joe. So the rest of you, please come, because that's an important historic preservation discussion. It kind of needs to happen. All right, so I'll take a thank you. Long meeting, but we haven't had some meetings, so we're kind of catching up. So thank you, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
A second.
Amy, roll call.
Andy.
Aye.
Dan.
Yes.
Greg,
Aye.
Jay,
Aye.
Jess,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Harry,
Aye.
and Scott.
Aye.
Thank you all. Have a great 4th of July. See you later, guys.
And Juneteenth.
Juneteenth.
Yes, happy Juneteenth. Bye-bye.